We'll start the meeting in about 5 minutes.
ready to go.
Are you ready? All right, here we go. Can everybody hear us? All right. Jessica.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Welcome to our study session on fair policy and programs review. For the interest of some of our newer board members, the study session occurs at the request of any board member who requests presentation on a particular information. This is also a wonderful time for the board to be presented with information and engage in discussion about a policy or an operational issue. No action will be taken today, but rather the study sessions would precede the development of policy or operating programs that would be acted upon later. Today's study session comes at the request of Chair Pastor, who requested that we have a study session really focused on fair policy, including fair discount programs and fair free transit. So we'll present quite a bit of information today, including a little bit of history on Valley Metro's fair programs, our existing fair policy. I think it's also always helpful that we look across our industry at peer systems. We'll give you a quick overview of what they're doing. And where I'd like us to end up this morning is with some direction from the board, either take no action, no direction, or we may choose to embark on a fair system study, which we have not done I think in more than 15 years here at Valley Metro. So I'm going to turn the conversation over to Alexis Tamaron-Kinsey, our Director of Government Affairs, and Ken Kessler, our Chief Financial Officer, and together we'll walk you through the study session. As always, it's a lot of information. Please pause us and ask questions throughout the discussion this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. Members of the board, you can go ahead and get to the next slide, Stephanie. So just an outline of how we are going to walk through the study session, give you a little bit, as Jessica mentioned, some policy context, some concepts in the industry, a little snapshot at a couple of peer agencies and what they're doing to date. And then Ken will take over and talk about fair policy programs that currently exist in our programs, give you a little bit of an overview for some of our newer members of our fair collection modernization project, and then we will head into discussion. But again, anytime, feel free to ask a question. So transit fare policy concepts. The concept of free fare transit has gained momentum in the United States in recent years, especially some of transit agencies trying to evaluate and pilot full or partial fare transit programs. Some of the recent momentum on this front can be attributed in part to political and social justice movements that are happening across the country that are pushing our governments and local agencies to focus on equity. Advocates for fair or partial free fare transit have called for policies and programs to improve transit access by eliminating financial barriers. They argue that these barriers reduce the ability of the most vulnerable to access mobility options. Additionally, fare box recovery ratios for many transit agencies have been trending downwards in recent years while operating costs have increased. So while some transit agencies have success in versions of fare-free transit, it is not a one-size-fits-all approach across the country. Most transit agencies, including Valley Metro, have relied upon revenues to fund a portion of our transit operations. So with limited operating budgets, transit agencies have had to make some decisions on how to best move those dollars or use those dollars. And without a sustainable source of replacement revenue, in the case of Valley Metro in particular, the uncertainty around Prop 400 extension, many transit agencies would find it difficult to maintain existing service levels while expanding service in the future. And additionally, I would like to add that during the COVID-19 pandemic, they really kind of further fueled conversations around fare policy alternatives, since many transit agencies suspended fare collection, as Valley Metro did, or fare enforcement to reduce the contact between riders and operators. But some of that was made possible by the fact that we were getting additional federal funding during the pandemic. So given these trends, advocates have questioned whether spending money to collect what could be a shrinking pot of revenue from transit riders, many who are low income, is it worth it? Even if transit agencies can fill a revenue gap from fares with alternative revenue sources, some advocates have argued as well that these additional resources should be used to increase service quality or expand service rather than to eliminate fares entirely. And we did glean a lot of information from a 2019 transit survey, which found that even given the choice, most lower income bus riders would prefer improving the quality of transit service than lowering fares or having free fares. And if the loss of the fare revenue resulting from the implementation of fare or partial free fare transit were to result in service cuts, riders have indicated that their mobility could be restricted despite the increased financial access. Furthermore, this study also found that additional ridership from fare-free transit may put a strain on existing transit service and may require significant short-term investment in additional service vehicles or facilities. So this could suggest that if a transit agency had to choose between devoting funds to reducing fares or going fare-free or maintaining and improving service, the survey found that most riders would prefer the latter to increase improving service. Thus, the idea of making transit free turns out to be a little bit all over the map, so to speak. Next slide. The purpose of fare collection, we thought to give you a highlight of why most transit agencies collect fare. Historically, transit fares have been used as a tool to support the operation of transit service. Transit agencies in the United States do have roots in for-profit companies that collected fare revenue in exchange for services. But even when most transit agencies transition to be publicly run, fares remain an important source of transit agency revenue. Charging fares has also been a way for transit agencies to show the public that transit service has value to the community and reminds riders every time they ride. We also found that fares have also have non-revenue benefits that urge the continuation of collecting fares. One, they demonstrate that transit service has an intrinsic value to a community's quality of life. It helps to manage peak travel times for commuters, but also in the case for Valley Metro specifically, it also helps to influence behavior. That being that Valley Metro is a destination system, so you basically are not encouraged not to ride back and forth, but have a place of where you're headed to while you ride. And also it is a method to enforce our code of conduct across the system. Additionally, fare collection, particularly in this valley and in this region, has been a method of regional cohesion. So while we have multiple agencies that might provide transit service, we do have one fare policy in coordination with the city of Phoenix and all of our transit partners. So there's a bit of cohesion, regional cohesion to why we collect fares.
Alexis,
Yes, ma'am.
can you elaborate on the influence of behavior?
Sure. From our perspective, and we saw this during the pandemic, and actually we heard quite a bit from our union partners, that collecting fares is a way to, I want to say, monitor or modify behavior because you have to have a ticket to ride. We saw this particularly when we went to rear door boarding, where there was less interface with operators, that because you can enter the rear door, you didn't have to show fare. There was, I want to say, lack of a better way to say this, less policing of the system by even your colleagues who you're riding with. So we have used both on the bus and rail system fares as a way to ensure, one, that you're paying your fare, that you're invested in what you're in your pass, and that you're adhering to the code of conduct that has been rolled out across the system.
I have a strong response to that, and I'm not sure how I'm going to deliver it. But what I heard, or how I'm interpreting, is that if you have a fare or you purchase a fare, then you have access to the ride. And because I have a fare ticket, the expectation is to follow the code of conduct. And if it was like during COVID, what you witnessed was modified behavior, which would be true, because during COVID, there was a lot of pieces moving with the pandemic. And then because we changed the system and it was because of the pandemic and the fear, we decided to open up the back. But if you had a free fare system, there's still some way to modify or influence behavior because they're coming at the front. So I'm just kind of laying that out there so we can really think about how this language is being interpreted from a minority woman's view. Thank you.
Duly noted, thank you. So just kind of to overview, looking at other systems and through this course of doing research on fare-free or partial fare-free systems, we were looking at what are the fare policy goals. Central to the debate, should public transit be fully supported as a public resource akin to roads, libraries, and parks? A number of cities and transit agencies across the country have said yes. Advocates say it is also a crucial step towards increasing social equity in transit, arguing that it provides security for some of the most insecure populations, as Americans who are lower income, Black, Hispanic, immigrants, and those who are under 50 are most likely to use transit services. In cities such as Denver and Austin that have experimented with free fares, officials have noted that ridership increased immediately with rises between 20 to 60% in the first few months. So central to the debate about fare policies, whether they're free, partially free, or a discount program based upon certain populations or some sort of hybrid partnership, which we'll get into a little bit later, is whether transit should be treated as a public good or if it is a service that users should pay for, basically by paying their fair share. There's, like I said earlier, there's no one-size-fits-all approach, and we'll get into that shortly. But as such, fare policy exists on a spectrum, and you will see this as fare policies and programs that may include programs for discounted fares for select riders, kind of just depend across the country. That being said,
Alexis.
I have a
Sorry, go
quick
ahead.
question. Are you saying that Denver didn't charge and then they started charging and then the ridership went up? Is that what?
Denver has two routes in their downtown area that are fare-free. So they saw some increases in ridership to those specific routes. But they're also in the process of doing a fare assessment to see really kind of what the total impact is for potentially rolling that out even further beyond those two routes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Go ahead.
As soon as I get my button to work. And Alexis can take a drink. When we look, and I may be jumping like 10 steps ahead, but when we look at this, I think it's important for us to also understand how each of these transit systems is funded. It's a lot easier we talk about Denver, for example, and it controls, the city of Denver. I'm not sure how far into the metro region it goes, as opposed to an entire region-wide system like we have. So I think each one of these things in context is a really important part of the discussion. So hopefully we touch on that as well. Because I think it makes sense that you drop the fare and ridership is going to increase.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basic economics, but I think there's more to it.
Yeah.
We'll get into this, a couple of those specific examples, RTD and King County and Seattle in particular.
If I may, so fare policy and decisions about fare policy are certainly a local decision. And while we've got so many similarities with our peer agencies, how transit is funded and how transit systems are governed, it all really does vary a little bit by region. We're going to go through a few peer examples throughout the presentation this morning, and a couple of them, including Denver Regional Transit District and Sound Transit, which is the Seattle metropolitan region. Those are also quasi-governmental regional entities, but even outside of that construct, there are different funding sources and different levels of funding for the transit system that we should note as we explore these differences.
Right, you can go to the next slide. So that's what we were looking at, just kind of a status of the industry. And there's very, again, not a one size fits all depending upon the different properties. But we looked at full fare free. Does not collect any fares at all, partial fare free from select groups that don't have to pay a fare. A discount fare transit. This is something similar to what we employ here at Valley Metro for specific groups of individuals, and not fare-free transit, which would also, we could classify Valley Metro as being, since we do collect fares, but we have discount programs and other partnerships that we utilize in the community that help with those fares for the riding public. So you can go to the next slide. This kind of gets into a snapshot of what some of the peer agencies that we looked at. Denver RTD in particular, they do require fares. However, they do have a fare free for 2 central routes and for certain populations, specifically children, active duty military, law enforcement employees, and their employees and contractors, as well as ADA transit, paratransit riders. Their policy goal when they were implementing this was to increase efficiency of transit with faster service and all door boarding, so you can get through their central districts pretty quickly. They're currently undergoing a fare study and equity analysis based upon some of the pilots they have run, which may include an exploration of fare-free transit alternatives more broadly than what they tested thus far. And in particular, the downtown district, they called it the free mall ride. They did experience high ridership when they did this pilot, and it was popular with downtown commuters, but it was suspended when COVID hit. Their free fare for specific passenger groups has been in place since the earliest days of RTD, so they do have the hybrid model since their very founding. And that foregone fare revenue was not directly replaced, but they had built it in over time over their budget. The free mall ride and free metro ride have been fare-free since their launch and were not budgeted to require fares. Passengers often transfer to and other RTD services and then pay a fare. So because they had fare-free, but if you wanted to transfer and go to a different part of the city or within the region, you had to pay a fare. So that would be a little bit more hybrid approach. Stephanie, you can go to the next slide. The other one we also looked at was UTA, the Utah Transit Authority. They've experienced various fare-free alternatives, including fare-free transit in certain zones on a new BRT line. And they also did this past year, February of 22, a free fares for February. So it was a pilot program that they were running. And their policy goals at that point were to attract ridership and to improve air quality by removing cars from the road. Without an evaluation, they haven't done a formal evaluation or feedback. Their determination of the success of fare-free programs has been difficult to determine. However, at the end of last year, they initiated a regional fare-free transit evaluation to do a more deeper dive in possibly doing additional free fares in the future. Some of the key takeaways that they noted was that they received complaints from riders about passengers experiencing homelessness or those who are unsheltered, and also some disruptive passengers and behaviors. They did experience increased ridership during the free fare February promotion. And the feedback on the rider survey indicated that the month had a positive impact on riders, including improved affordability, access, mobility, and quality of life. Their fare-free February was paid through partnerships. So they budgeted out what they think it was going to cost, had partnerships with regional governments, their own departments, educational institutions, corporations and other stakeholders in the region. The other peer agency we looked at who had experienced a kind of a hybrid model, so to speak, was King County Metro. This is King County / Sound Transit in the Seattle metro area. They do not have free transit. but they do administer 2 subsidized pass programs that support particularly low-income riders. Their policy goals were specifically to subsidize or support riders in the greatest need, particularly prioritizing the mobility of people of color, residents with low income, limited or non-English speaking communities, immigrants, and refugees. They sought also to retain fare revenue and regional cohesion, meaning, again, one fare policy across the region, even while they experimented with certain pass programs within communities. At this point, King County is not pursuing free fare transit because they do have quite a bit of a high fare box recovery and the potential to service without fare revenue. They anticipate impacts to service without the fare revenue if they were to go full fare free. Sorry, it's a bit of a tongue twister. Reduced fare for residents with incomes at or below 200% of the federal poverty line has existed since 2005 in that region. And it's valid for travel not only on the King County Metro system, but Sound Transit services. They established in 2020 the fully subsidized annual pass program expands on the existing reduced fare program that is available to riders who have income thresholds at or below 80% of the federal poverty line. So they're very targeted in their approach. Their program was developed. I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilman.
Sorry, I didn't see you.
That's
Just
okay.
yell at me.
Girls in the way here.
Always my fault.
I'm the new kid, so it takes me a while to get the hang of how this stuff. So one of the questions that I have, if you could expand for me, if you know the answer, is how did they decide, what evaluation or process did they use to have people give them the information on their income levels? I know in the school system, there's a process for that, but if somebody came to me and said, hey, before I can give you this free pass, I need to know if you make X dollars a year or a month or a week. Do you know what the process was that they used for that? Because that would be somewhat invasive for some folks to be able to say what their income levels were. And a lot of people actually don't know how much money they make per year or how that relates to the poverty level. They just know, this is what I get home at the end of the week. So is there more information on that?
Very good question. I don't have that information, but I know I can get that for you. How they determine that.
I can tell you just from talking with some of my peers, sometimes it is a W-2 or a paycheck stub. At the former agency I served, one community offered reduced fare to individuals who happened to qualify for a certain program that was based on a combination of age and income. In this case, the focus was low-income seniors. And so they had proof of that program enrollment, and that's what sufficed for their supported fare. So it varies by city, and when it is attached to participation in another program, it's another way to verify that without this. But there's a cost of administering that, and certainly there's that discomfort, I think, which you're alluding to, Councilmember Klein, with producing that information.
And some folks, if they are the parents of children who are in the free or reduced lunch program, that would be the qualifying program that currently exists. But if you are a person with no children or a senior or fill in the blank, some other collectible of people, I just can see where that would be either a lot of work on the part of the people who are accepting people in or something. So it was just something that struck my curiosity. So thank you very much for the true answer, and that's where I was going with that. Thank you.
I didn't want to be specific to this example, but in the course of doing the research on this, there have also been, if you qualify for Medicaid or the version of Medicaid in your state, that was your qualifying factor. I don't remember if that was very specific to this program or a different peer agency that we were looking at. You're welcome. And in particular, some of their policy goals and their subsidized pass programs, they did a random control trial pilot that informed the subsidized pass program, found that recipients of a fully subsidized pass more than doubled their transit usage as compared to recipients of a partially subsidized pass, but that they would likely not overwhelm the system, as most additional trips occurred off-peak hours, so they weren't necessarily commuters. Metro and its research partners are also conducting a larger scale impact evaluation of this subsidized pass program to inform recommendations for program changes or expansion of that program. So they expect to publish their findings with respect to impact on participants' mobility, health, and well-being in 2024. So they're in the process of doing that. Their program was funded through their county budget, so it was a county program as well. And they also received funding from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to help support the evaluation. Next up, Mr. Kessler.
Thanks, Alexis. Chair, Pastor, members of the board, I'm going to go through an overview of our current FAIR policy and FAIR programs that we offer at Valley Metro. Next slide. So these are the fare options we currently offer to our passengers. There's three main categories. There's local bus, light rail, express rapid bus, and then streetcar with three different pricing structures. We offer full and reduced fare for each of those programs. The reduced fare program basically provides half-price fare to seniors, youth, and persons with disabilities or Medicare card holders. All of those categories are federally mandated except for youth. Youth is a discretionary program here at Valley Metro in this region whereby we offer those reduced fares to youth from 6 to 18. Under 6 ride on the system for free. Next slide. So here on this slide are fare programs that we offer. We have the Platinum Pass, a very popular program used for primarily for commuters. We have a number of students and youth programs offered here throughout the region. Some are specific to certain populations, like the ASU U Pass. Obviously, you have to be an ASU student. The Tempe Youth Pass program for youth residents in the city of Tempe. And then we also have ADA and low-income programs available here in the Valley Metro region. And then some programs for event goers, our special event pass and our ticket partnership program, which has been a pretty popular program, has worked well. And let's go to the next slide and I'll touch a little bit more on the details of the ticket program.
I have a question regarding the youth. So if I'm 6 through 18, then I can get an all-day pass for $2?
That's correct.
Okay. So I know at Phoenix Union, they offer bus passes. Are they purchasing reduced fares in a bulk sense?
So Chair Pastor, for Phoenix Union, their primary program is they utilize, it's sort of a sub-program of the Platinum Pass. It was sort of rebranded a few years ago as the A+ program, but it works just like the Platinum Pass program. Phoenix Union has participated in that program for probably a couple decades, whereby all of their schools, but I think maybe 2, do not have yellow bus service. They provide these passes to their students, and they pay on like the Platinum Pass, they pay on a per usage basis up to a cap, and they are provided to the district at the reduced fare rate. So they cap out at $32, which is the monthly pass for reduced fare. But they do also use regular passes on sort of a as needed basis. From what I was told anecdotally, some students need incentives to come to school. So instead of giving them a Platinum Pass and letting them run free, they offer day or week and sometimes monthly passes, the regular magnetic stripe passes.
And so they're the ones subsidizing it?
Yes, the school
Okay.
district is paying for that, yes.
Okay. And is that what happens with the ASU Student U Pass and Tempe Youth Pass?
Yes, the ASU U Pass is paid for by the university, and then the Tempe Youth Pass is paid for by the city of Tempe.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I think Vice Mayor McMahon also had a question.
Go ahead.
Just throw. Excuse me, could you please explain the homeless provider program?
Certainly.
You guys can be, just so I understand it better. Thank you.
Certainly, that's a program that's been offered here in the region for quite a long time, probably near a couple of decades. And the way that works is social service agencies that service persons experiencing homelessness are eligible. Basically, it's a They need to be a 501c3 or a government agency or an educational institution providing services to homeless individuals. And they can buy regular full fare passes at a 50% discount. And so we provide those passes to them, and they hand them out to their clients to get to job interviews, jobs, necessary appointments and things like that.
Do you have any statistics on how much it's used? It's probably used a lot, don't you think?
It's a pre-pandemic, it was a fairly, widely used program. There is about a little over 200 active customers meaning agencies that participate in the program. If I remember correctly, the revenue pre-pandemic was probably $300,000-$400,000 a year, to give you kind of a sense of the magnitude. Currently, it's roughly about half of that, around a couple $100,000 a year.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so now moving on to some of our ticket partnerships and other sponsorships. Just wanted to mention the Footprint Center. We've had a long-standing ticket partnership with them, thanks to Hillary and her work over the years to kind of keep that in place. That goes back to pretty much when light rail started operations. That's a partnership whereby any tickets to an event at that venue is good for your light rail fare. I believe it's 4 hours prior to the event through the end of the transit day. So that's been a very successful program in providing that convenience to event goers at that venue, where their ticket basically to the event, they just show it to a fare inspector on the train on the day of event, and that they're good to go for their fare. We've had the McDowell Mountain Music Festival, I think a couple of times. Hans Park, or it was Indian School Park. So we partnered with them whereby they paid a certain amount per ticket for the event to Valley Metro to sort of replace the fare. And that's kind of how the Footprint Center partnership works as well. They pay Valley Metro a certain amount per ticket scanned, and that's how we recover our fare revenue, and it makes it convenient for the event goers. And then some corporate sponsored events, recently the Super Bowl. So last week, during the 4 days of all the events in the downtown area, there was a partnership kind of spearheaded by DPI, including the Phoenix Convention Center and the Super Bowl host committee. We partnered with them. Basically, their ticket to the convention center events, the Super Bowl experience, or the Hans Park Super Bowl experience worked as their fare on light rail. And I worked out there a few days at some parking rides along the system during the events, and a lot of people were taking advantage of that. So it was a very successful, very highly used. So that's something we hope we can carry into other special events we have here in the Valley. Like next year, we're going to have the NCAA Final Four and hopefully a future Super Bowl again and so forth. So that worked really well, thanks to Hillary and some folks at the city of Phoenix and DPI that kind of helped kind of make those partnerships come to fruition. And then, question?
I have a question
Sure.
about that. So when I purchase a ticket at Footprint Center, I'll have to analyze it. Then am I paying a fee for, how does this get
Paying
funded?
a lot of fees, those Ticketmaster fees.
Right. No, I do pay a lot of fees. But
Right, yeah.
my question is there a fee to get me the free ride? Not just, I can't see purchasing a ticket.
You're not going to see the actual charge for the light rail pass on there specifically. I'm sure the Suns build in in their business model on how they cost out their tickets, what they're paying Valley Metro for those fares. But it's nothing specific. A customer sees, oh, it's this much, it goes towards my light rail fare.
Okay, because now I'm going to lead to, is it a reduced fare or is it a full fare?
Actually, the way we price the per ticket scan that we negotiate with the Footprint Center is based on a hybrid of reduced full fare
Okay,
across the system.
okay. So I am paying for it then, as a consumer,
No, the Suns are paying for it.
well, I pay the Sun.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I
go
just,
ahead.
I have a follow-up question. Thank you so much. I think listening to that, it makes me, am I hearing what you're saying that you only get the tickets based on the swipe? So for example, I have 1,000,000 fees on my ticket that I'm paying anyway, but if I don't swipe that ticket to get on a Valley Metro train, then it won't have an impact.
Oh, no, let me clarify. It's the tickets scanned at the event, at the venue. So as you enter
Oh, okay.
Footprint Center, they now have those handheld things they scan your tickets with. So for every one of those, we get paid.
Thank you.
You bet, absolutely. Okay, and then just so no more questions, the last couple, these are sort of ongoing annual.
Hold on,
ahead.
hold on, hold
Go
on.
ahead.
Oh, okay.
I thought I had it clear until you just said that. What ticket are we talking about?
We're talking about the
Event ticket?
event ticket, yes. Because there's no need to have a transit ticket or transit pass for if you're going to the event.
So when I go see Pink in October,
I'm going with my wife too. I'm going with my wife too.
Yes.
It was a birthday present. I had to do it.
light rail doesn't go anywhere near where I live, so I don't have to worry about taking it, but. Oh, yeah. Hey, I gave that as a gift.
Hey, and you paid for it.
Yeah.
Paid for the ticket.
But that ticket has a transit fare built into it.
It's your light rail fare, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we decide to come down
You're
from,
paying.
we decide to have dinner in Tempe and take the light rail in.
Yeah, good idea.
There you go.
Right.
I was hoping you'll say
I
Chandler, but
couldn't
it's
see
okay.
it. Wow.
Man, I cannot win. There's no winning on this one.
No.
I would scan my ticket to enter at the light rail station.
No, so to clarify, you don't scan your event ticket. It's just a visual
Put on you.
flash if you get inspected by a
operator.
fare inspector.
Okay.
Right, yes.
Because our fare collectors don't identify those.
Right, and they can't scan because there's different technologies and stuff. Then our system is for specific coded passes for our system, yeah.
You could say Footprints time because Footprint's located in Gilbert, Arizona, just in case you're.
So if they sell 20,000 tickets to an event, but 1,000 people use the light rail, have they collected 19,000 additional fares?
Correct.
Well, it's not additional fares. The way the pricing model works out is we do it based on a calculated estimated percentage of the event goers that use light rail. So that calculated percentage, say it comes out to 10%.
So it's an actuarial
Exactly.
event.
I want to invite Hillary Foos, if I may, Madam Chair, to the podium. Hillary is leading out the sales of a lot of our ticket partnerships. This is a great discussion coming off of the recent success of our Super Bowl partnership. I long for us to deepen our engagement with a lot of the institutions across the valley and really integrate rail service in particular into those events. So good conversation. So let's hear how it works, Hillary.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, thank you for all your questions and being so inquisitive on this topic. Mr. Kessler was hitting the nail on the head. We use data. We have a lot of ridership data where people are getting on and off at events, and we use that data to tell us what percentage of the overall event's attendance will use light rail. Then that helps us understand the rate that we need to apply to all the event tickets. So that rate is in the range of it. We adjust it based on ridership levels, but it started out at 33 cents for every ticket scanned, and that allows us to cover the fare revenue for the 10% who take light rail to that event. So we are just in it to recoup our fair revenue costs to make sure that everybody's paying their fair share, but only for that percentage based on our ridership data that takes light rail to that event.
So in essence, those who go to the event and don't ride light rail are subsidizing those who do.
So each of the partnerships follow this model. The Super Bowl partnership that we just did, we worked
Yes.
with each of the venues to estimate ticket sales and capacity, to estimate mode split. Mode split for Super Bowl events was a little bit higher assumption than on an average Saturday night because some of these parking garages were $60 to $80. So people were turning to Valley Metro, thankfully.
Yeah. Yes, and as Jessica said, we look forward to, and we have expanded this program beyond Footprint to a couple of the festivals. McDowell Mountain is mentioned there. There's been several others, but we look forward to furthering that concept with other event venues across the valley and with other partners.
So I have a question about Super Bowl. And probably McDowell Mountain too.
As long as it's not about the turf.
No. No, it's not. So then, how is it calculated to figure out this event's gonna cost this much?
So we're using in advance, we're using that estimated attendance or sales, and we had good numbers for convention center. Footprint center, of course, was already covered by this existing agreement, capacity at Hance Park. And then going into it, we do have to make some assumptions about what that mode split will look like. In footprints, I think there's a true-up process at the end, so we go back and verify that and adjust the amount accordingly. And again, the goal here is to recoup the fares that those customers would otherwise be paying if they were using mobile or stopping at a ticket vending machine at the beginning of their trip.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, and just lastly, a couple of annual ongoing sponsorships we have is the Coors Light New Year's Eve, Freeze Your Keys. That's been an annual thing for several years now on New Year's Eve for free rides, sponsored by Molson Coors, and then the Mary on Main in the city of Mesa on that end of the light rail system throughout the holiday season. Next slide. And then real quickly, I want to just touch on kind of our sort of current fare system versus what's coming in the future and sort of actually partially already launched. Next slide. We have a fare system that is essentially 15, 16 years old, past its useful life. We've been working for the last 6, 7 years when we started planning, going through design, and now we're in implementation of the new system. The new system will include account-based electronic fare payment options, so mobile ticketing, which you may know we launched on February 1 and has looked pretty successful so far through the first couple of weeks. And then reloadable smart cards that will be launched early next year. This will be changing out the vending machines, brand new vending machines to do that. We'll be going to cash-only fare boxes early, probably the first quarter of 24. And then we'll have a upgraded retail network that will work essentially like buying a gift card today. You'll walk into one of our merchants that are participating. You'll get it's called a copper card. You'll get a copper card off the rack. You'll take it to the cashier and you'll load whatever amount of value you want to load to it. It'll be a stored value account whereby you really won't have a pass. You'll have stored value that will be charged off your account with every use. And then that gets me to the transition to my next slide, which is a concept that we'll be implementing called fare capping. This is fairly new in North America. There's a handful of transit agencies that have implemented this actually since our project has been underway. So, as we planned for this, we were actually kind of on the cutting edge in terms of the ideas of going forward with this. And the way fare capping works is you pay as you go, the single ride fare. If you're a full fare rider, you pay $2. And essentially in a month, once you tap 16 times, 32 times, you've paid the $64 for a monthly pass, and your rides after that point are free. And the real convenient thing about this is today, you have to buy a $64 pass up front. You have to pay that $64 up front. In the future system, you'll be able to load value as you go throughout the month. You can put $20 on today, $20 on next month, or next week, and just kind of pay as you go. So for folks who are, say, living, paycheck to paycheck, week to week, it's a convenient way where today they can't take advantage of that. And the monthly pass is our most discounted pass. So this is, we see as a real convenience for those who need it the most, that they'll be able to kind of pay as you go. And then once they hit that point during the month where they've reached 32 taps, they get to ride for free for the rest of the month.
Ken, there's a question.
Yes, so I just have a quick question about the fare collection system and it going live and everything. Does that also include people that are disabled and they can just put it on, they don't have to carry cash anymore? They can just put it on their phone?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And that option is available now. Since we launched the mobile app with 1 day and 1 ride passes, both full and reduced.
Okay.
And so we'll transition to the fare capping concept when we launch the reloadable smart cards, because there's back end work, and then the ticket vending, the fare vending machines are the key element, producing those. There's somewhere between 100 and 200 total fare vending machines on the rail system, plus some on Arizona Avenue that will need to be replaced. So once that infrastructure is in place, we'll be able to launch phase 2 reloadable smart cards. And then at that point, we'll go to a fare capping system across the board. And people have, if you lose your phone, if you're doing the mobile fare, you lose your phone, you have an account that's in the cloud hosted back end. So you get a new phone, you just re-register into your account in your new phone. And if you had $50 on your account, you don't lose your $50. Today, if you have a $64 monthly pass and you lose it, you just lost $64. So the nice thing about this is it's an account-based, all electronic payment system, so that lose a card, you lose your phone, whatever your fare instrument you're using, you still have your value available in your account.
Because I have a constituent that has a son that's autistic, and he was paying cash, and they help out the homeless a lot. So the homeless were asking for money on the bus, so he thought that he should just give all of his money away. So, because he doesn't understand the difference, right? So, so with this new system, he won't need to carry cash then, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and I mean, even today, if you wanted to use the day pass, because I'm assuming paying cash means you're paying one ride at a time. So, the mobile ticket is available today to use.
Okay, perfect.
It's a Valley
Thank you.
Metro app.
Thank
If I
you.
may, Madam Chair, I think I'd like to provide additional clarification on your question, Vice Mayor Adams.
Okay.
So Ken's description is accurate for what is happening on fixed route service now, that's bus and rail and streetcar. I'd like Tom Young, our Director of Accessible Transportation Services, to talk about fare payment on paratransit and ride choice.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. So it's a separate system on the ADA paratransit program. We're in the process right now of implementing online fare payments. It's probably 2 to 3 months out of the full implementation of the program. But eventually, it'll be an e-wallet type system where the parents can load the money into an account, and then our dispatch and scheduling system will automatically pull the fare out as a trip is taken. So it's probably 2 to 3 months out, but that'll eventually be available on ADA paratransit also.
So I think, Vice Mayor, that's going to be the fare payment mechanism for the family that you're thinking of. So the customer, caregivers, or family could manage that account online, much in the same way you may be familiar with I manage my students' lunch accounts in this way.
Thank you for the clarification. Go ahead.
Tom, don't leave town. My question is for you. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I've become the ride choice queen of City of Surprise.
And thank you very much for that.
Thank you. I only became involved with this maybe less than 6 months ago, and I'm very focused on getting this out to everybody that could qualify under ride choice, whether it's the paratransit, the 400-mile, or the just regular paratransit, the regular ride choice. So you were mentioning how long it would take for this to be available for ADA paratransit. Is ride choice available now or soon or sometime in my lifetime?
Ride choice is available today for electronic payments, whether it's e-wallet or credit card. So yes, it's available today for everybody.
Perfect.
And thank you for all your work. We did just mail out a whole case of brochures for ride choice to you.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. I have meetings scheduled between now and July at many veteran and senior registered living homes all over the City of Surprise. So I will use them. We may be asking for more soon.
And thank you. Anything you need from us, let us know and we'll be there.
Oh, we haven't been together in a long time. All right.
Okay, that wraps up my part of the presentation.
So if I may, Madam Chair, members of the board, at this point, we would like to entertain any further discussions. We would love to have some direction from the board. At this point, no, again, we're not setting policy, but a high-level direction. Next slide, please. One of the paths that we may consider is conducting a fare system study. Again, it's been about 15 years since we've done this. We have new technology and tools, as Ken and Tom laid out. There are also new programs out there within the industry that we may wish to explore. One of our paths could be for the board to direct staff to conduct a fare system study, which would include an assessment of our existing conditions and fare payment mechanisms, a really deeper dive look at what is happening in the transit fare payment space across our industry, providing some different options and receiving direction from this board regarding our fair policy goals. We have not updated our fair policy goal since 2007, so it is time. And then at the end, arriving at a future fair policy and pricing structure throughout this process. And necessary input would be input from the public and our writing customers who experience this on a day-to-day basis. So with that, maybe I think the next slide has a little infographic about how these processes typically take shape. I'm hot off doing this at my last organization, and it was a helpful and incredibly valuable process. What questions may we answer for you?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for the information, Alexis and Ken. I think this first question is for Alexis. What successes or efficiencies did you see in your evaluation of the Fair Free programs that might be impactful in the Valley?
Well, I think based upon just some of the research we did of peer agencies, particularly if they're very targeted for certain populations, they saw a lot more success than doing, and it was more manageable from that perspective as well. So looking at it from that perspective of if you're looking at targeted populations where you can measure and get that data without being too intrusive, back to the question previously of how do you determine without being a barrier. You got somewhat of a leap of faith, so to speak, depending upon where you're going with this. And just really from some of the larger systems we looked at that have counted on fair revenue is making sure that, one, your policy goals are fairly clear, even if you're doing it in a pilot perspective. What are you trying to achieve so we can measure that to see whether or not we made success. But one of the other things we do see from the research is it does help increase ridership. And so if that is a goal of the agency, it is certain things that we can look at, whether it's certain populations or looking at a broader swath. If that is a determination of where we want to go, we saw success in that. But again, we'd have to do probably a little bit more research to see what the impacts are of that, particularly on the safety and security side, because there will be things that we will either have to mitigate, or if ridership, and it would be a great problem to have, if ridership does increase, what do we have to increase along with that, particularly on the safety and security front. So a lot of research to be done, but there are some successes, but also some impacts we would need to measure.
And then I don't know if it's a comment or a question that could be addressed with the transportation status in Arizona, just thinking about the state legislature and the extension of Prop 400. I have a concern thinking about no fare because I don't want us to not have a source of funding that it's a contributor situation, but then I don't want us to become irrelevant in the state. I don't want the state to say, well, they're not collecting fares, so why should we fund them? I don't see transportation as something that we love here. I don't know, or expanding access to transportation. So how can we set policies? I guess this is for my fellow board members that will make it make sense if we do expand free fare, because I don't think the legislature would continue to find irrelevance, and we might no longer exist as we are today if we aren't being able to sustain and support, because we know that maybe a low percentage of ridership right now is a negative reflection. We might increase ridership, but then also the expense. So I think we want to stay relevant.
Madam Chair.
I agree. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
With respect to doing an assessment, what is staff's opinion as far as the length of time and the duration that would take and approximate cost?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Vice Mayor Brown. We haven't developed a scope of work, so we would need to move through that process. Anytime we engage external assistance, purchase something, or engage in a contract, we actually come before this body with a request to issue an RFP. Before we do that, it's typically accompanied by an independent cost estimate. So I want to hold on the cost. In terms of timing, projects like this are typically lasting about 12 to 24 months, depending on the level of stakeholder engagement and how deep a dive we actually want to do.
I appreciate
Does that
that.
answer your question sufficiently?
It does, and it helps me where I would originally say I'd be very hesitant personally to give much of a direction as far as some of the fare attributes or things we should consider without the assessment, knowing that it could take an entire year or perhaps even two. That changes my thought process on that a bit. I'm certain that potentially you have some ideas from your previous experience that would help us to really kind of dial in on things that you might suggest would be most effective, especially in terms of technology that might be implemented. I love where we're going with technology and the efficiencies it can drive. So that's where I'd be today.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Given the length of time that it's been since we've done an assessment, I think we should move forward with that and, really get into the weeds and what we can do and what we can't do. I have similar concerns as Councilmember White with, not having any fees, not charging any fees, but I think we really need to let the experts who do this every day get into the weeds and see where we can go with this. So that's just my opinion.
It occurs to me, Vice Mayor, as I'm kind of developing a scope in my brain on the fly here, we do have some tools in place, including a market research contract, that we could begin this process relatively swiftly. One of the data points we would need is a comprehensive understanding of who is using what fare payment options today. That's incredibly valuable. And then that stakeholder and community engagement, which again, we already have contracts in place right now that have already been approved by this board that we could use to begin that process.
Okay, thank you so much.
Councilmember Stipp?
Thanks. I think it would be a problem for us to make any decision without this. To the Vice Mayor's point, I am astonished, but I'm not that it's been, almost 20 years since we've done the last one. But I think the world has changed entirely. Even if we had done this in 2017, I think the pandemic and whatnot has changed the world entirely, that would call for this to be done anyway. So getting this moving forward, I thought it was very interesting of a concept to, and I think it was Denver, that does selected routes that are free. That didn't even dawn on me as we were kind of contemplating this. So I think looking for those, and I think that's step 8 in the process. So I would definitely be in support of moving forward with figuring out where we're headed.
Thank you, Councilmember. It's worth noting that some of these are local decisions, by the way. Some of our member cities are offering certain services for free. There is not a fare on the Tempe orbits. Those are the local circulator routes. The same with the Fiesta bus, which recently opened in Mesa, and temporarily at the onset of service operation for the Tempe streetcar, there's currently not a fare. So we have a little bit of those examples. Again, those services tend to be hyper-local, but I would characterize them kind of a la the mall shuttle that used to exist in this fashion in downtown Denver.
Councilmember Littlefield has a question.
Perfect.
Yes, thank you. We also have the Scottsdale Trolley, which is free ridership throughout Scottsdale. So that's something else that is available on a city level. I just had a comment to make. All of these cards that we sell and give to folks to have rights to ride on the trolleys or to ride on the rail, the buses, they're quite valuable to these folks. This is how they get around. This is probably one of the best ways they have to get around. And are we taking any steps or have any kind of procedure available that if the card should be stolen or lost, that they have a way to replace that card? Thank you.
Yeah, so today currently with the paper passes, we don't have a way really to verify if a person actually had purchased a pass. So it's very limited circumstances where we actually do replace. But if it is, like, for example, if somebody attempts to make a purchase at a ticket vending machine at a light rail station, we can trace that transaction or that attempted transaction. Say they paid their fare, but the machine malfunctioned and they didn't get their pass. In those cases, it's certainly very easy to verify that and to make sure we replace that pass. But if somebody just goes into, say, a Circle K and buys a pass and they lose it, there's no way for the agency to verify that. So to replace in those instances really kind of opens us up to a lot of potential fraud against us. And we already know there's a reduced fare situation where a lot of people are out there on the current system using reduced fare who are not maybe eligible. And that's one of the features of the new system to sort of, rein that in. But I mean, there are limited certain situations where we do that, but there has to be certain evidence that they actually made the purchase.
And with the new, if I can add to what Ken was explaining and said earlier in the presentation with the fare modernization project that we're currently going through, you'll be able to access if you lose your mobile card, you're still going to be able to access your account online in the cloud. So you'll be able to recover that much more easier than trying to track down your paper fare.
That's what I was
moving in that direction.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of concerned about, because if somebody buys a card that they expect to be good for a month for their travel needs, and then it gets stolen or lost, I think it would benefit us, even if we put a time frame on it, to have some sort of procedure where they could try to get that back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In the new system, we'll be able to, as I mentioned, it'll be an account-based system. So if they lose whatever their fare token is, whether they're using their mobile phone device and they lose that, or if they're using the smart card, if they lose that or that's stolen, they'll have access to their account. They just get, obviously if somebody loses their phone, they're gonna replace it, right? But if they lose their card, if they're using the card, they can just go get a new card and then they can register that card to their existing account, and any value they had, loaded into that account remains with them, so they don't lose anything.
Great, thank you.
And if I can add, the one thing that we saw, and Ken, you can probably elaborate on this, particularly this board has had a lot of discussion, particularly on AFS, about reduced fare and reduced fare abuse and how we are addressing that. Part of the modernization program is to be able to validate the reduced fare. And so just from a snapshot of looking at the activity around Super Bowl, we found that people were paying their full fare because you have to validate that you're eligible to receive the reduced fare. So there was quite a significant use of the proper fare for the traveling public when we first launched the mobile fare devices.
Are there any other questions?
I just have a comment. I want to say, I've heard a lot of great comments this morning, and I think it was 2019 or the beginning of 2020 when we started talking about this fare system. And I think I said, sitting at this table, 2023, 2024, that is so far away. Here we are, right? And to put this all in place and to be moving forward with this. But again, Councilmember Stipp said that we haven't done a study in so long, and surprised, not surprised. It's time that we do this. This is a lot of great discussion today. I think you've heard a lot of input from all these members as to what exactly to look for this region and how important it is that we make sure that we're showing that we're making an effort from a political standpoint because of the discussions we're seeing with Prop 400, Prop 400E, whatever that's going to look like potentially. It's very important for this group to make sure that we are making those necessary steps forward to support this program. So thanks for all the great discussion. I've been here a long time on this board. I think this is one of my favorite meetings so far. Yeah,
So which one
great,
was your worst
great
one?
group too. I won't mention it, but I think there are people here that know.
Please don't. Yes, please don't.
Bill?
Talking about his. Since I'm the new guy, can I take credit for that, Mayor?
It's a combo of all of you. And Hillary, your great comments. I think we've had some really great discussion today, and I appreciate that.
So I believe you have a directive or have a way of how we're going to move forward. I feel like the fair system study is important. This conversation is happening amongst all our cities. And what does that look like in the future? And how do we balance access and be able to provide access to those in poverty, really, or underserved, and be able to get them to and from a place of job workplace, and then how do you balance also the needs of running a system and being able to maintain and provide quality service. It's a fine balance that we're in right now, and how do we make these decisions? So I think it's very important for that. The other piece, and I don't know if we'd be able to see this, but my curiosity right now is behavior. And what I'm hearing is that if you offer a free fare, then behavior becomes a whole nother level. And so that, I'm very interested in that, to understand why. And I think I kind of know why, but I just want to validate, making sure that is that really true? And why is it happening? I used to run a scholarship program, and some kids needed books and some students didn't. But when we offered free books, for some reason, our books never came back. But then when we started to put a little surcharge of returning the book and making sure it was, then there was some value in what they invested in. And so I think that's where I know that's probably the answer, but just kind of wanting to know. So, any other questions? All right, meeting, study session adjourned. We will be back in 7 minutes. Hey, well, no, I said 5 to Stip, and Stip said you need more bathrooms, Laura.
To the individuals joining us via YouTube, we will be back in about 7 minutes to convene the regular board meeting. Thank you.
Right out there.
All right, already.
I know you can talk, I'm sorry, no, you do. I know. I love it.
Okay. We're gonna have a little discussion.
That would, it needs to be revisited. Okay, so that's good. It does. You're right. You're right.
Alexa.
And I'll talk to Matt about that. We'll kind of-
2 minutes, 2 minutes.
might want to make that an hour.
Thank you.
Right, exactly. That's me. That is me.
Okay. All right, here we go. Live and chatty. All right. Today is February 16th, 2023. We are going to call into order, convene the meeting and welcome members to the February meeting. I would like to welcome Vice Mayor Peggy McMahon, who will be representing the town of Fountain Hills. Pat, will you now call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. City of Avondale, Councilmember Maxine White.
Present.
City of Buckeye, Councilmember Clay Goodman. City of Chandler, Councilmember O.D. Harris.
Here.
City of El Mirage, Councilmember Monica Dorsey.
Here.
Town of Fountain Hills, Vice Mayor Peggy McMahon. Town of Gilbert, Mayor Bridget Peterson. City of Glendale, Councilmember Lauren Tomlichoff. City of Goodyear, Councilmember Bill Stipp.
Present.
Maricopa County Supervisor Jack Sellers. City of Mesa, Vice Mayor Francisco Heredia. City of Peoria, Councilmember John Edwards. City of Phoenix, Councilmember Laura Pastor.
I'm here.
Town of Queen Creek, Vice Mayor Jeff Brown.
Here.
City of Scottsdale, Vice Mayor Kathy Littlefield. City of Surprise, Councilmember Allie Klein.
Here.
And City of Tempe, Councilmember Vice Mayor Jennifer Adams.
Present.
City of Tolleson, Councilmember Adolfo Gomez. Town of Wickenburg, Mayor Rui Pereira. Mayor Pereira is present on the WebEx. And Town of Youngtown, Mayor Michael LaVault. Chair, we are ready to proceed.
All right, thank you, Pat. If a committee member would like to ask a question or make a comment during the meeting, please type your comment in the box and it will be read aloud and answered. All meeting attendees, please mute your computer, microphone, or phone. Item number 1 is executive session. There is no need to utilize the executive session today. Item number 2 is public comment. The public will be provided with an opportunity at this time to address the committees on non-agenda items and all action agenda items for the joint RPTA and the VMR meeting agendas. Up to 3 minutes will be provided per speaker unless the chair allows more at their discretion. A total of 15 minutes for all speakers will be provided. Thank you.
Mr. Crowley?
as per my conversation with the chair, the new way of the public addressing you and such is not her idea, and why it got changed, we still don't know. I should be able to address this and all the other ones on the specifics of it. On your joint meeting, you're going to be doing $13 million for consultants. I turned in the minutes from the prior 3 meetings at the managers meeting showing, because the minutes from them and my input on them applied totally to every part of it, but it wasn't done or addressed that way. They said, hey, you turned that in at the first meeting just because we're doing it in the others, and you said this is where it's to apply, it doesn't go into the record. Now that $13 million, 10% is going to be the group, the part for the bus and such. Avondale, you get a park and ride. Tempe, you get some stuff. And Mesa, you're going to get a bus washer. $13 million for planning for the rail, 10% for the bus. And for the rail part, are you going to do it multimodal? No. Oh, in Avondale, you get bus stops improvements. Now, as I pointed out at the last meeting, there are over 1,000 or 1,100 bus stops within you guys' cities with no facility. They're just a sign or a bench. Why? You've had 26 years to build the infrastructure, and you've done what? Gilbert, you've got a single 25-mile stretch. How much of it doesn't have shelters? How many of your bus stops are at standard, which the industry standard is a bus stop every quarter mile? And in this area, since we do have things that will kill you, known as the sun in the summertime, and if you're standing outside in direct sunlight and you're as white as I am, you can die how quick? And how fast do you get cancer, sir, if you're standing in that same thing? Why this system is doing what it's doing, I don't understand. You were supposed to get a briefing from the lobbyists to tell you what they're doing. I've got 2 articles by Mary Jo Fitzel showing that down at the legislature, they don't think that you should exist. But then what have you done to put into them what it is that you need as a substation of the system itself, that you continue to do the infrastructure and rebuild what you haven't done, and to get the job done?
All right. Chief Executive Officer's report. Jessica Medford Miller, our CEO, will give us a report.
Good morning, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. First, I would like to give you an update on the Proposition 400 extension, which is perhaps the most pressing issue facing Valley Metro at this time. It has been a very active couple of weeks with respect to the renewal of Prop 400. And before I give you an update on specific activities, I want to set a little bit of backdrop for what 400 is and what we would expect the extension of 400 or 400E, as it's been called, would do. We are working from the momentum plan that was developed by Maricopa Association of Governments, our partners MAG, in close coordination with all of our member cities and residents from across the valley. This plan was approved, as many of you are aware, because you are involved with it. This plan was unanimously approved by all of our valley mayors. It includes the expansion of our freeway and arterial system, the continued operation and expansion of our transit system as well. In addition to supporting the local match for light rail construction, which seems to be getting a lot of the attention and capturing a lot of the air in the room, Proposition 400 is our primary source of revenue for the operation of all of Valley Metro's services, including and especially our regional bus system and our paratransit system. When we are hearing from legislators, we do hear a great deal about light rail, and the importance of light rail shouldn't be understated. But we also must push to the fore all of the other mobility solutions that Valley Metro delivers. And for our 18 member cities and Maricopa County, most of what we're delivering is bus service. Every day, 70% of our customers are boarding a Valley Metro, City of Phoenix, or a member city bus. So that's an important point that we continue to work to convey. When I look at the MAG Momentum Plan, not just the Momentum Plan, but the successes that we've had from Prop 400 and Prop 300 before that, for the last 40 years, this region has built such an amazing multimodal transportation system that includes our highways, our arterials, and our transit system. This plan moving us forward continues that. This plan would deliver additional highway capacity, especially in some of our growing communities, particularly in the East and West Valley, additional arterial investments throughout the valley, and then here in the core of the region, additional investment in light rails where we're no longer building highway capacity. We have simply run out of space. In fact, the Momentum Plan would fund the construction of light rail, the I-10 West corridor within the right-of-way of Interstate 10, which is the most congested section of highway in the Phoenix metropolitan region. So just a backdrop on 400. We've seen a number of bills introduced, and this past Monday at the Senate, there was a hearing on Senate Bill 1122. There have actually been a series of hearings over the last few weeks. There was a vote on Senate Bill 1122. Originally, Senate Bill 1122 proposed devoting 5% of the proceeds of 400E to transit. The Momentum Plan, by the way, calls for 40.5%, so it's about 40% of funding be devoted to transit for the support of our ongoing operations, the maintenance of our system, and the expansion of the system. On Monday, legislators worked together to introduce a number of amendments that would increase that level of funding from 5% to 10%, and then there was a 15%, and there was a 20%. That 5% level would result in a $244.5 million annual reduction to Valley Metro's operating budget. And some of the other bills, including House Bill 2031 that was introduced by Representative Cook, that allocation to transit would be 20%. So increase from 5%, but this is still about $120 million a year reduction in transit investment across the valley. This is an incredibly important point to note. We've been working very closely with our state legislators. Myself, our Director of Government Affairs, our state lobbying team has been meeting with members of the House and the Senate just as quickly as they'll let us in the door to express the importance of transit. We're also working with our member cities and some of our partnering organizations to ensure that we are collectively aware of the funding levels that are prescribed by the Momentum Plan and the funding levels that have been prescribed by the bills introduced. We understand that tomorrow there will be a hearing on House Bill 2031, and that was introduced by Representative Cook. He was so good to allow us the opportunity to meet with him just this morning to discuss his bill, and we appreciate that opportunity. However, this bill does reduce the transit allocation to 20%. I do want to be very clear that we cannot sustain our existing operations at that level of funding. We have no ability, of course, to expand the system over that 20-year period at that level of funding. We've also been working with our Valley mayors. A couple of days ago, I had the opportunity to speak with the West Valley mayors and managers, and I am imploring each of us to reach out to and work with our state legislators so that we can come up with a bill that truly helps us implement the vision laid out in the Momentum Plan, and that bill would ultimately be presented to the voters of Maricopa County for their approval. So hot button, I'll continue to keep this board apprised. We keep our ear to the ground, and again, we're going in every door to have every conversation that is open to us. May I answer any questions for the board?
Vice Mayor? Yes, I'm just brainstorming right now. Would it be helpful if you let because we're so represented here across the valley, if they know like who we are as a board and like, you know, we're all supportive of it continuing to be funded fully. And I'm just kind of throwing that out there if that might be helpful.
I think it would be helpful, and we continue to carry the water at every conversation. I'm talking about who Valley Metro is and how we're governed. In a meeting a couple of weeks ago with Senator Carroll, who has been instrumental both in the last legislative session and this one, a comment that he made was, where are you in this? Because I'm here taking heat from my own party, no less. Where are you? Are you coming to the hearings? And so I would also express to this board and to our member cities to meet with these legislators and to be present and speak out at the hearings. I was so delighted on Monday when we actually had one of our paratransit customers who learned about this through an organization that he's involved with. He arrived and presented testimony. It was really powerful because it's one thing for me. I work for Valley Metro, which is a great pleasure to speak on our behalf, but it was another to have that writer there sharing his own lived experience and how that bill, if passed, would impact his day-to-day life. So yep, I will represent us and continue to communicate who is on this board. It would be helpful if this board and our member city leadership, especially those that were so heavily involved in Momentum, would express that as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yesterday at the MAG TPC Transportation Policy Committee, I sit on that one also. It was also mentioned to maybe reach out to the legislators that are supporting this effort and to thank them and to make sure that they hear from us.
Yeah.
And to reach out to the governor's office to understand, to let her know how we are working together to make this happen. Very disappointed to have a conversation with someone yesterday that said they were guaranteed that Governor Ducey was going to pass 400E and then chose to veto it, I think, to get something else. We're long past that, but I think it's just as important to reach out and thank all those folks as it is to ask them for their assistance too.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to echo that. We were, Mayor and I were on TPC yesterday. I think it's important for everybody to understand very specifically that Senator Carroll really stuck his neck out on Monday with a no vote on that committee, which effectively killed the most damaging of these bills that were going forward. Senator Carroll has since been taking a tremendous amount of heat for that. So if you have the ability through your intergov or yourself to actually reach out to Senator Carroll and thank him for being bold enough to take a step, that would be, I think, appreciated by him for sure, because he's really taking a lot of arrows at this particular point. You know, while I appreciate, you know, we're sitting here at the Valley Metro Board of Directors, and I know that Jessica's been working very closely with membership at MAG. MAG has been telling all of us as cities, well, don't worry, we got it. We're taking the lead on this. But here we are fighting horrible bill after horrible bill. So, you know, for what it's worth, I think we need to start thinking about taking a little bit more aggressive approach and really getting these. Well, I appreciate the paratransit customer being there. I think their presence made zero difference to the party line vote had it not been for Senator Carroll. And that is just a horrible statement on where we are politically as a state right now. So please, if you have the inclination, get engaged, or at least at a minimum, continue to work with your intergov to make sure that your city is engaged in understanding what is going to happen if Prop 400 doesn't go through.
Thank you, Councilmember Stepp.
Go ahead. Are there talking points that you guys could provide to us?
We would be happy to do so.
Okay, I think that'd be helpful.
And we'll continue to provide updates to those as the bills introduced evolve. Absolutely.
Okay, if we're all giving kind of the same consistent message, that I think that'd be really helpful.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? Oh, Councilmember OD, sorry.
turn on. Testing. All right. It works, everyone. No, my main question is that throughout this process, I mean, obviously, when we, City of Chandler perspective, we had our meeting and we've talked about this, and it's just, there's a lot of legislation that is going on that we're not particularly happy about. I won't even get into the occupancy tax and all the other stuff that they're doing that kind of, we're trying to protect local. That's kind of what our main focus is, protecting local. But I was not for sure what was the main opposition of not passing that. I've heard a lot, but I didn't know what was the main opposition, so we can kind of understand more what's the main opposition about it.
I don't want to speak on behalf of others, but I haven't heard a singular cohesive argument against allowing the voters of Maricopa County to decide whether or not they would like to implement the transportation plan that was developed by the people in leadership of Maricopa County. And I think that is very important. By the numbers, most of our state legislators do not represent Maricopa County, or perhaps represent only a small portion of Maricopa County. And so I think the debates and the conversations I have heard at the legislature, they're not terribly specific. And they don't reflect the nuts and bolts details of the plan. Some of these are philosophical debates about issues that are somewhat related or not at all related to transportation in particular. So that's why it is so important that we show up, that we express support, as Vice Mayor Adams said, for our supporters. And we represent very well what is to be gained by passing this enabling legislation to, again, give voters of Maricopa County the opportunity to decide their own programming.
Mayor Pereira, you have your hand raised. We can't, we can't hear you, Mayor. Yeah. Mayor, if you'd like to put your question in the chat, I can read it out for you. While he's doing that, we can see if there are any other questions.
Are there any other questions? I guess for me, can our lobbyists, because I know they're on the ground right now at the Capitol, but can they reach out to us and say, I strategically, or I think you should be able to call so-and-so, you have a relationship. I have a lot of relationships, and like many of us at the Capitol. So it's a matter, for me, I'm in strategic mode right now.
Yeah.
And strategically starting to place, okay, who has the best relationship here, and kind of figure out, those that are not supporting it, what is the issue?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We can certainly task our lobbyists with supporting this board more directly. We'll begin today by working with them to develop those message points that Vice Mayor Adams requested earlier. I would also say to this board, because I don't know, I know we're all differently situated within our respective communities, so we don't know all of those touch points that you have. If you think there might be a contact you can communicate with, share that, and the lobbyists would be helpful to make that connection. The other piece I think that is missing in the conversation to date is engagement of the business community, the chambers of commerce, because we move people. We carry people to businesses, and the economic development that has occurred along light rail is tremendous and should be celebrated. And the amount of jobs and opportunities we connect to every day is something that we should be discussing. We have an understanding of what service looks like in each of your jurisdictions. We know what routes are there. We know what points of interest are there. I would love assistance in connecting with key institutions like healthcare and education institutions, which are big markets for transit. And perhaps we could sit down together with leadership of those institutions in your city and create those connections. I think that is really powerful.
Chair, I have the question from Mayor. Mayor Pereira writes, I attended a GPEC meeting today, and the word is that the bill is being rewritten and may look a lot like what the governor vetoed last year, with a slight change in the way that the dollars are being split.
I can say, at least as of our meeting with Representative Cook a couple of hours ago, that bill, which is 2031, did include a lot of the language from the MAG Momentum Plan that was consistent with House Bill 2685 that was vetoed by Governor Ducey, but that's split. We can't actually, the technical language is there, but we can't implement the plan without the funding. So we can't take 40.4% and bring it down to 20% and still expect to be able to execute that, the vision of that plan or our existing operations. So it is a start, but again, that split is something that we have to focus on.
Okay, so I'm back into strategy mode. At what point, because we're on defense right now, and I want to get to offense. And so at what point do we look at the plan and talk to MAG or move within the MAG world and say, all right, what are they willing, or what is it that needs to get through that is going to put us completely in jeopardy? I know everything does, but I'm not sure if we're going to get what we want in the sense of the whole plan. And I'm processing as I'm thinking. And so we have to get to offense. And what that looks like, I don't know.
So I don't want to comment on the contents of the plan, as that is not my role. But what I could do is defer to Councilmember Stipp and Mayor Peterson, who are engaged with MAG. And perhaps it's not I want to recognize that may not be a conversation for this day.
Well, it might not, we may not be able to just, those members that sit there, you guys can talk to me later and say, I think this is what's going to happen, or this is the momentum, or this is the conversation. But I think we all on here need to understand it in order to understand. We understand the urgency, but really what's the urgency and how do we then move?
The one thing I would say for us all is it's early. We do still have time. It is February. We do hope to arrive at a budget some months down the road. So I would hate to play all of our cards now from a strategic perspective and back off this soon into the game. So as we've been talking with our legislators and our lobbyists, they've characterized this right now here in the middle of February as being midway through the first quarter of the game. So let's not throw it all out. This is a plan. It's a solid plan. It's a plan that was developed with years and thousands of input points. And we have 40 years of history and success to point back to deviate from that course at this early stage, I think could be perilous for us.
Okay.
And Chair, please note that MAG and representatives from MAG are working on this constantly. The chair is Jack Sellers of MAG TPC. The chair of the regional committee is Avondale's Mayor Ken Weiss. They have become quite the duo, from what I understand, at making presentations and talking to people and getting out. So MAG is constantly working on this, and we are constantly talking about it. And let's reach out and thank David Cook for moving forward with this too. When I mentioned people before, it's just as important to thank the people that are working behind this at the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? So everybody understands the urgency? And strategize amongst ourselves to move fast and furious. And you are correct, Jessica. It is the first quarter. Usually when everything happens, it's the final quarter, and it's usually the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Chair Pastor.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll wait.
Go ahead.
I did have one question. So I know at MAG, they had some bullet points, and you've asked for bullet points and talking points, and the impact to this body, Meg knew approximately how much this was costing in terms of inability currently to move forward. Do we have that from Valley Metro at this point?
Vice Mayor Brown, do you mean the impact to our current system and budget?
Yeah, and the inability to plan for the future.
Oh, I see,
For
I
instance,
see.
Meg's to the tune of, and I'll let Councilmember Stipp or Mayor Peterson address it more directly, but to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars currently just in inflationary and or loss of bonding capacity and the inability to actually plan for projects into or past, I guess, 2025.
Yeah, wonderful question. So for the highway side, there are projects that are currently not advancing because of uncertainty of regionally available funds. When you postpone projects, as you all know, they get more expensive over time. We haven't yet at this moment hit that point with Valley Metro. If this goes on, we will. We are just about at the point next month where we would enter Federal Transit Administration's project development stage for the capital extension. CapEx is the last major project that is being funded under the existing Prop 400. We can't do anything on I-10 West, which is the extension of that. So we'll soon hit the point in time where we would have needed to begun planning for I-10 West. I will also tell you, we are submitting or preparing anyway to submit applications for federal funding on a frequent basis for discretionary programs. We anticipate submitting a request for low and no emissions vehicles to the Federal Transit Administration in April. In that, we have to provide assurance that we have the local funding available. The way supply chain is working, we would likely be making those purchases close to or after the expiration of Prop 400. And if we don't have our local match available, we don't even get evaluated. So we are literally not in the game. And I talked a lot about operations earlier. I would be remiss if I didn't remind us that 400 is the funding source that provides the local match for federal funding. We should all realize and appreciate we have been so successful here in the Valley at attracting federal infrastructure investment. This is one of the reasons I was drawn to come here and to work with this city because of the level of investment that is being made. We don't get those dollars. Those dollars will be spent. They will just not be spent in Arizona. All of these federal programs are oversubscribed, but we've been successful because our projects are strong and our delivery has been very good.
I appreciate that. That does answer my question into Chair Pastor's earlier point about what does it mean to Valley Metro. I think that inclusion of that type of information will be extremely helpful.
Absolutely.
Maricopa County Supervisor Sellers, would you like to speak on this? And welcome.
Nothing to add, thank you.
All right, Steve.
No, you said it all.
All right.
Let's move on.
Okay, we will move on.
All right, let's take a brief look inside the operation of the organization. I want to provide you with some update points. First, on workforce shortage. We've been reporting on this for, I would say, 6-8 months now, and we have made strong progress, thanks in large part to the actions of this board in fall of 2022 to increase the wage rates for some of our operations contracts. Some success stories that we have include rail operations with ACI. We had a big gap. We had a long way to go to support our workforce requirement for Super Bowl and our Northwest Phase 2 extension that opens in the very near future. We have hit that milestone, and we were able to field a very high level of service this past weekend, thanks to the new operators. And ACI did an excellent job of having training staff and management staff on hand, because so many of those operators out during Super Bowl operations, when we had a lot of people in downtown Phoenix, were brand new operators, and they performed very well. We are struggling in a couple of areas still, including West Valley operations. This is our National Express contract. We are working closely with that contractor on a performance improvement program to include increasing their workforce availability so that they can field their level of service. I also want to point out that we're continuing to struggle within the skilled trades and traction power technicians and communications technicians. These are Valley Metro direct employees. And this is going to be not a short-term battle, but a midterm battle. And we are really going to have to work to attract and also train these technical roles. And this isn't unique to Valley Metro or transit, by the way, but workforce in the skilled trades is a challenge for us nationwide. Next slide, please. Having a look at ridership, and the figures I'm reporting to you, by the way, end December 31. So there's always a little bit of a lag in performance reporting. We had a strong third quarter. We're continuing to grow year over year. December ridership was a little lower than we would have liked. Preliminary figures from January are strong. And of course, we know that we're going to have good solid February ridership for us. Looking at our contractor performance on the next slide, please. On our East Valley bus operations and maintenance contract, the areas of focus for us right now include reducing the number of customer complaints. We're working closely with our contractor. In this instance, it's First Transit to do this. I want to highlight our revenue service completed has improved. It's moving in the right direction, and that is thanks to the increase in those workforce numbers on the First Transit side. We're also conducting a system-wide running time analysis. This means we're looking at how long does it really take for the bus to get from one end of the route to another, with a goal of improving on-time performance. So that's also a midterm project. That's not something that we can execute within a quarter, but we are on the path. In the West Valley, I mentioned we are working closely with National Express on a pretty comprehensive performance improvement plan to move some of these indicators in the right direction, including revenue service completed, on-time performance, and customer complaints. We've had a little bit of success lately. We don't want to promise that our first quarter of this calendar year will be much better, but it will be better. On light rail, this is our ACI contract, light rail and streetcar. Again, we're able to field all of our scheduled service. That is going very well. Our on-time performance, which you'll note as of December 31 for that quarter, is 65%. It's not good. And as a rail customer, it's very frustrating when the train isn't arriving on time. And what we found is as traffic patterns have changed, we've got more people on the road than we did not long ago. It's taking longer for our train to travel from one end of the alignment to another. So on Saturday, February 4th, we implemented a new train schedule. We added time to that schedule, and our on-time performance is up by more than 20%. So that's a great success. We want to follow it with Super Bowl activities. Rather than taking 2 weeks to really monitor it, it's really going to take about 4 weeks because we had a couple of anomalous weeks, but great improvement, better service for the customer, also a better experience for our operators because they're not trying to run hot or stressing. So we're seeing a reduction in red signal violations and other violations for operators and an increase in customer satisfaction. So moving in the right direction, and kudos to the rail operations team for the improvement in this area.
Vice Mayor?
Yes. Can you go back to that last slide?
Yeah.
And I just, let's see, this one. The preventative maintenance inspections are down to 38%.
This is temporary. And if you'll note, Vice Mayor, in Q2, we were at 94%. What we were doing in the fourth quarter was readying our new trains for revenue service. We have 10 new Siemens trains that we put into service for Super Bowl events. And Rob Rosenberg, our Deputy Director of Maintenance, is okay, Rob. Rob and his team have been to say overtime is a vast understatement, have been working to ready those new trains. And now working to get our preventative maintenance program back on schedule. So you'll see great improvement in the first quarter of calendar year 23.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah,
Really helps.
thank you for the
Makes
question.
sense.
On paratransit, one area of performance improvement that we are focused on is our on-time performance. Tom Young, who you heard from earlier, Director of Accessible Transportation Services, is working with our vendor, which is Transdev, on this contract. We're also in a procurement process. You're going to hear from us next month on this topic. Next slide, please. And on Ride Choice, on-time performance is going very well. Customer satisfaction is very high. I appreciate Councilmember Klein, the evangelism for Ride Choice. It's really a wonderful program. One of my fellow soccer parents in Gilbert is an avid user of Ride Choice, and he describes it as life-changing. It's a wonderful program. Okay, quick update on our construction projects. South Central Downtown Hub, The team, Valley Metro, City of Phoenix, Hewitt, put in a tremendous amount of work to ready downtown for the Super Bowl festivities. And if you had the opportunity to be in downtown, it was and is a point of pride. Everything has been so clean. It has been easy to get around. There is so much signage available. The orange construction barricades are all gone. We're continuing work on South Central, but the concrete work, the flat work, the really nitty gritty, dirty work is done in downtown. And instead we've shifted our focus on the heavy civil work to the South Central portion of the corridor. So now is where the dirty kind of earthwork and street reconfiguration is taking shape in South Central. We're engaging, especially at this time, with our local businesses to mitigate the impacts of construction on that community. And I'll tell you in just a minute about one such program. Meanwhile, up north, we are now inside of 1 year of beginning revenue service on the Northwest Phase 2 extension project, which is incredibly exciting. And a year is not a long time when you're constructing a rail alignment. We will very soon begin for pre-revenue operations for Northwest Phase 2. There's so much that has to be done on the operations side before we actually open. Dan Filipino and his team, Adrian Ruiz and her team are doing a tremendous job working together and supporting the construction program and preparing to begin service there. Super exciting. This is a couple of photos of our terminal station at Metro Center. On the west side of I-17, we have a 4-story parking garage in place. Our elevated station at Metro Center is something to be seen. We look forward to hosting events and of course inviting this board to visit with us at Metro Center. It really is something to walk across that light rail bridge over I-17 and arrive on the west side at Metro Center and see all of the great development, including some of the housing and mixed-use development that's planned for the Metro Center site. It's a big deal. So speaking of South Central, we have a new program, and I'm really excited about this program. It's called the South Central Extension Art Grant Awards Program. It was spurred in part by the leadership of Chair Pastor. This is an investment in smaller scale arts programs in the South Central community. And we held an application process. Applications were due in December. We have since evaluated them. And this week and next, we're in the process of notifying the recipients. We will fund more than a dozen projects totaling about $75,000. So this is a lot of different projects. So this is different than the heavy duty art that you're seeing at some of our stations. It includes performance art. There's a mural going in at Calvin's Market, and that's from the Central Park Neighborhood Association. There is music that is designed to honor mothers on Mother's Day that will be played throughout the Central Corridor at restaurants. I love that idea. There's something called Knowledge Fest, and that will be a series of events highlighting Black History Month through storytelling, jazz, poetry, and literature. And that was awarded to the Arizona Informant Foundation. There is a festival for women positive films, family activities, and cultural resources at Hayden Park. That's just a sampling of the programs. I love it. It is community focused and really designed to celebrate the rich cultural diversity that we have in the South Central Corridor. We talked a lot about FAIR today. Mobile FAIR launched. It's going really well. We had over 4,500 downloads, I think, of mobile fairs during the Super Bowl event activities for those individuals who weren't able to avail themselves of the One Pass opportunity because they weren't going to one of those 3 destinations. It's been huge. I'll tell you, having that fare payment option really alleviated a lot of the burden on our equipment and also the time that it takes just to board light rail or bus before your trip. Let's talk about Super Bowl for a little bit. I don't know if you heard, but we had a game here and some events here. This was a long stretch for us. In Super Bowl events in downtown ranged from February 4th and 5th, and then we had our big blitz was the 9th through 12th. We carried right around, our ridership figures are still preliminary, but we carried right around 250,000 passenger boardings during that time period, which is about a 60% increase in our system ridership. This team did so well. They made it look easy. It is not easy. They've been planning this event for more than a year, working with our partners at the City of Phoenix, Department of Homeland Security, police, fire, to execute this program. We had over 400 of our team members engaged in direct delivery of service. That's driving a bus or a train, cleaning a station, or providing security services. We had 150 more team members, people like me who have other kinds of day jobs out volunteering, and that team delivered 1,500 volunteer hours. So what it looked like on the ground for our customers, we had people awaiting with a smile, with maps and information at all of our park ride lots, making sure people were aware of the pass program. If they didn't qualify for that, making sure they were hooked up with mobile fare or connected with the ticket vending machine. Then when they arrived at their station downtown, they were greeted with friendly faces, helpful information everywhere, incredibly clean and secure platforms. Allied Universal Security did a wonderful job of deploying a professional and ready staff to help us. Hillary and her team in communications did a great job of messaging with our Get a Game Plan program. So people arrived, we were ready to orient people, but they generally arrived at our station knowing what to do and where to go. And that's thanks to our communications team. Dan Filipino and his operations team were everywhere. And as I said, those trains were running on time. We leveraged special event trains when we needed for post events. We were running mostly 3-car trains in the evening. On a daily basis, we typically run 2-car trains. So we had a lot of capacity, and it is a thing of beauty to see a 3-car train pull up at a platform and staff successfully load 1 car, then the 2nd car, and then the 3rd car. The amount of people we can move quickly is just amazing. So I thought this was a great testament to the success of our rail system. Rob Rosenberg and his team, as I mentioned, not only were they supporting our existing fleet, but they readied 10 new vehicles, which was no small feat. So we were able to deploy 50 light rail vehicles out for the event. So kudos to staff. I mean, well done.
Vice Mayor Adams?
Yes, are we able to get anything from the Super Bowl about how successful we were? Like a letter or anything, like, this kind of transportation makes it easy for us to come back, have another Super Bowl here.
Yeah.
I'm just like trying the pressure.
Yeah.
The campaign with these folks downtown.
I was hustling over here this morning because I was coming from a press conference with Super Bowl host committee downtown Phoenix, City of Phoenix and Sky Harbor Airport that focused specifically on celebrating transportation's role in Super Bowl. So there's messaging around just that. As we're finalizing our ridership numbers, we too will put out a press release celebrating those very high ridership figures. And Vice Mayor Adams, to your question, I will reach back out to Super Bowl host committee so that they can communicate directly the role of transit in securing the Super Bowl. It is no accident, or it's not by happenstance that we are one of 2 cities that have hosted Super Bowl 4 times. In addition to the beautiful weather, it is the transportation system that we have in this valley that is able to move people quickly. Sky Harbor set a record for enplanements on Monday of this week at their airport. They were the busiest airport in the world on that day, which is huge. This is really something we should celebrate, especially at a time when we're contemplating whether or not we're going to continue funding this transportation system.
Exactly. I'm just thinking something from the NFL commissioner.
Yeah.
Really powerful.
Yeah, thank you. We will
And
reach out.
if I might be able to help you get that, if you'd like.
Of course. Yeah. Yes. Hillary says yes. I'm going to let you connect with Hillary Foos, Vice Mayor. She would love that. Any inroads that we can gain access to would be incredibly beneficial. That concludes my, look ahead. So we're beginning the March cycle with the quickness. We have Transportation and Management Committee, Rail Management Committee coming up March 1, AFS, March 2nd, March 16th, Board of Directors meeting, and then we'll begin our April cycle on April 5th, and then Board of Directors, April 7th.
That's wrong.
It's wrong.
Sorry,
Okay,
I have the
scratch
wrong
that.
date. That's not the right date.
This concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you for the report. It's an exciting report. Item number 4 is Audit and Finance Subcommittee update. Councilmember Stipp.
All right, I'll be brief. The minutes are contained in our packet. We did have the paratransit operator certifications and labor audit, which was the final of the 3 internal audits that were performed. There were findings, but none were significant. We had the internal audit update. We did review the second quarter budget, where we currently stand. Everything is currently within the existing plan, which obviously is always good news. We had the first of the service level budget assumption update from Ken Kessler, our Chief Financial Officer, which is the kickoff of the budget process as we embark on that journey, which will take us now until June. Really good information as we look forward to this next fiscal year. And with that, pending any questions, that'll end my report.
Questions? No questions. Item number 5, consent agenda. The consent agenda is presented for action. Are there any questions or on this item, or do you want to discuss, or we can discuss after a motion? Because I need a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? I got it. All those in favor of the motion, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor, please vote no. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 6, travel expenditures and solicitation. This item is just presented for information only. Are there any questions? Don't see any. Report on item number 7, report on current events and suggested future agenda items. Does anybody have any?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
City of Avondale, wanted to just share about the Boulevard. I know we heard a little bit of information about our transportation system, but we did open up a new garage at the Boulevard, very, very close to where we have a shed. So there's public parking available for folks who do stop at the park and ride out there. There's overflow, there's a garage as well that the city has opened. And then we also have an awesome partnership with the city of Goodyear and We Ride. And Councilmember Stipp might also be able to speak to this, but our We Ride program is going very well. There's neat ways with We Ride. It's microtransit. It's definitely something we appreciate the support of Valley Metro with, because a lot of our riders out in the West Valley, they take the express bus. I'm finding that a lot more of my constituents are also in the van pools that are supported by Valley Metro. But when we think about We Ride, it's really neat microtransit that helps folks get to our resource center out in Avondale, also out to Banner on Thomas, and throughout small portions of Goodyear and also small portions of Avondale. The ride fares are comparable, and I liken it to what we would think of, and I don't want to give their competitors out, so I won't tell you what I liken it to. But think about all those other great transportation systems. You can order a ride right on your phone. So I just wanted to share some of that with what's going on out in the West Valley and how we had free Zoom for a temporary time out in Avondale also something supported by Valley Metro. That was just to kind of see where the ridership was, because we're changing how we do transportation a little bit, but we do appreciate the partnership, and we really see that folks do like access to transportation. Even though we might not have the rail out there, there's a lot of other transportation options, and our city would like to support things that are effective, efficient, and successful. Thank you so much, Madam Chair and CEO. Thank you.
Thank you, and that is exciting to hear. Exciting news. Thank you. I just want to thank everybody who participated in the Super Bowl. I know all of Valley Metro staff was volunteering, and everybody was pushing 12-hour, 15-hour days in volunteering. So I just want to commend Valley Metro for stepping up and delivering the service that they delivered. So I just think we need a round of applause. Okay. I got all my notes mixed up. Yes, go ahead.
I would like to see for a future item how we mitigate, how we're mitigating heat factors in terms of waiting, and definitely would like to know what the participation will look like from cities and others, and the costs, the type of costs that will be in. And if there has been a study on it, because I'm new, I would like to learn a little bit more about how we mitigate heat while doing ride share and all the other stuff that we're doing. So that would be great.
All right.
We can do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Item number 8, next meeting. The next meeting of the joint boards is scheduled for Thursday, March 16th, 2023 at 11:15 a.m. Thank you. We will be entering our next meeting. Valley Metro RPTA, Thursday, February 16. I want to welcome all the members here. Item number 1 is executive session. I need a request of a motion and a second to enter into executive session according to Arizona Revised Statute 38-431.03A4.
Madam Chair, I move we go into executive session.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those not in favor, please say no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Board members that are joining us on the phone, you'll need to exit this WebEx, please, and connect to the confidential WebEx that's been given to you, and we will join you shortly in the other room. And then when we come back, you'll need to come back to this original WebEx. Thank you.
Well, how you doing? Good. Good, good. Yeah, it's in this, Oh, right, and Josh gave me some stuff from all these fellows from the past.
Oh, yeah. Fixed route operated by food. Yes, they decided. Put it on, make people transfer onto the truck.
Yeah, it's like going backwards in the original dollar, right? It's going back to dollar.
Right choice. Right.
How are you? Right. And we got contractors for that. Excuses.
Anyway. You need to get your plug in this one. Anyway, I wanted to give you, I figured it was easy to tell you all that. Oh, yeah, yeah.
All right, we are back. We are on item number 2, executive session action. Request a motion and a second to authorize the CEO to execute settlement agreement approved by the interim general counsel and authorize the interim general counsel to settle the litigation involving Damon P. Stepp in the amount not to exceed $75,000.
So moved. Second?
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those not in favor, please say no. The motion carries. Item number 3 is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is presented for action. Are there any questions? May I have a motion? Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those that are not in favor, please say no. The ayes carry. Thank you. Item number 4 is report on current events and suggested future items. Anybody have anything? All righty. Next meeting, the next meeting is Thursday, March 16th, 2023 at 11:15. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Good job.
1 minute, we'll be pulling together.
Chair, you can go ahead. Go ahead, yes.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. I will call the February meeting of Valley Metro Rail Board to order. Number one is consent agenda. The first item is the consent agenda, which is presented for action. Are there any questions or are there any items that need to be pulled for separate consideration? I request a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, can I have a vote, please? Aye.
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 Okay, number two, report on current events and suggested future agenda items. Are there members' reports on current events or any agenda items for future meetings? Hearing none, we'll move on to number three. Our next meeting will be Thursday, March 16th on 2023 at 11:15 a.m. This meeting is adjourned.
Woo!
Thank you.
Good meeting, everyone.